death moves first. The river looks gentle, but it keeps count. Mist clings to reeds as breath hangs low and tight. Water hushes over stones like teeth hidden by a smile. Mara slid beneath the film of dawn, silent as a rumor. Eli trembled at the bank where roots drank deep. Mara said, "Hunger is the rule that never blinks." Eli said, "The air smells like iron and rain." A kingfisher flashed, then the surface stilled again. The current pressed leaves flat and pulled the shore inward. Mara waited until the mirror held his reflection clean. Then the mirror broke, and everything chose a side. Silence returned like a verdict, and the river wore it well. The splash became memory as quickly as breath. Eli staggered, then locked his knees and stared at the wound. Mara sank until the world forgot her shape. Eli said, "It missed, but it still touched me." Mara said, "A near kill is a promise collected later." The sky pressed low, smelling of tin and wet bark. A dragonfly stitched air over the scrape, bright and indifferent. The bank held prints that told on the heart. Far downstream, another ripple hinted at company. The river counted again, and the next number felt close. Wind slid along the channel and moved the reeds like an omen. A hidden current tugged at sticks and secrets. Mara hovered where depth turned dark, measuring angles. Eli listened to the mud talk through his feet. "Mara," said, "the bank protects until it doesn't." Eli said, "The trees whisper run, but the thirst says stay." A fish broke and stitched the tear behind it. Thunder funneled into the bend and folded away. Somewhere, a heavy body drafted wake without a sound. The river watched both sides and narrowed the choices. The storm did not break, it negotiated. Light thinned and spread like cold oil. Eli tested the bank and found it held for now. Mara traced a slow arc that tightened into intent. Eli said, "I will not be the lesson today." Mara said, "Patience grows sharper than any tooth." A ripple met a counter-ripple and cancelled the truth between them. The reeds bowed and rose, as if counting down. A distant call slid over the water, thin as wire. The river kept its face, and beneath it the math sharpened. A single drop struck the surface and started the clock again. The smell of rain turned metallic and near. Eli bent for a mouthful he did not take. Mara adjusted 1 inch and made it destiny. Eli said, "I hear the ground begging me back." Mara said, "I hear the river opening a door." Thunder cracked and stitched the world into 2 halves. The reeds let go of a bird that shot skyward like doubt. Breath shortened to the size of a fist. The river did not promise mercy. It promised balance. The storm pulled back, leaving a hush that clung heavy as smoke. Eli limped through reeds, each step carving his fear into mud. Mara drifted, unseen, her hunger tucked under still water. The river did not ease. It only paused. Eli said, "Every shadow feels sharper." Mara said, "Shadows are only the edge of teeth." The innocent calf pressed close to his mother, her flank warm against his trembling. She whispered with her breath more than words. Wind carried scents of wet bark and rot. The moment stretched, fragile and dangerous, like silk holding a stone. The calf pressed closer, his coat spotted with dried mud. His mother lowered her muzzle and traced his wound with breath, not touch. Mara circled beneath, watching, patient as a wound that never closed. The air smelled of copper and rain. Eli said, "Will it always ache?" His mother said, "Pain is a teacher, but silence is survival." A crow's cry split the canopy and fell into the river bend. Ripples betrayed nothing but promised everything. The current moved slow, but steady, dragging fate along its bed. The scene turned into an anchor, drawing hearts to fragile skin. A shaft of sunlight broke the cloud edge, striking the bank like a spotlight. Eli blinked and shook, ears twitching at flies. His mother raised her head and caught the warmth on her brow. Mara turned under the beam, body glimmering like hidden bronze. "Ah." Eli said, Light feels like safety, but I still hear water breathing. His mother said, "Safety is borrowed, never owned." A heron drifted above, wings slicing the air without sound. The river held stillness as if listening. The silence became heavy enough to feel on the skin, a weight no limb could shrug off. The mother stepped forward, testing mud with one hoof. It sank, but held. Eli followed, pressed to her shadow. Mara eased closer beneath, using the roots as cover. The bank sagged but carried their weight. Eli said, "Every step feels like it could break me." His mother said, "Even broken ground can carry us once." A fish darted between roots, vanishing in silt. The air thickened, storm building again in the distance. A single branch cracked behind them, but no figure followed. The river waited, still sharpening its edge in silence. A low roll of thunder bent the air, warning of return. Eli lowered his head, ears folding flat, and breathed against his mother's leg. Mara froze, her body pressed flat against the silt. The river thickened as if waiting to speak. Eli said, "The sky sounds angry." His mother said, "It always sounds angry before it tears itself open." A drop fell, then another, dimpling the surface. Taff flinched, remembering the first strike. The mother leaned, wrapping him with her neck, steady but afraid. The river whispered louder, promising its hunger had not left. The storm broke its patience and began to pour with sharp hands. Rain carved paths down leaves and struck the river into foam. Eli staggered, mud clutching his hooves. His mother pushed forward, her flank pressed to his trembling side. Mara glided below, using the churn as her veil. Eli said, "The sky wants me down." His mother said, "Stand even when the sky commands you to fall." Lightning split the horizon and mirrored in Mara's eyes. The river swelled, thick with secrets and threats. Hunger and fear met under the same gray roof, both unwilling to release their claim. The bank began to erode, sliding into the swollen current. Eli slipped, but his mother steadied him with her shoulder. Mara surged closer, only a ripple betraying her speed. Thunder shook the ground beneath their weight. Eli said, "The earth betrays us too." His mother said, "It betrays to teach you balance." A branch snapped loose and crashed into the water, spinning like a blade. Mara's jaws brushed its edge, missing flesh but tasting the lesson. The rain thickened into a curtain, hiding intentions. The river became a stage where survival rehearsed its cruelest act again and again. Water carried the smell of iron, thick and raw. Eli lifted his head, nostrils flaring, as if blood itself whispered through the rain. His mother pressed him onward, each step slow but deliberate. Mara shifted behind, her tail carving a silent path closer. Eli said, "Something waits in the water's breath." His mother said, "If you can smell it, you can outlast it." A bird screamed and vanished into cloud cover. The mud clung like chains, pulling at their hooves. Every heartbeat felt borrowed, every breath a question without promise. The river swelled, loud, endless and merciless. The river claimed the path ahead, swollen and black with storm. Eli froze, his body rigid against the roar. His mother pressed closer, urging him into motion. Mara drifted beneath the crossing, her hunger narrowing into a single line of intent. Eli said, "I cannot step where the river opens its mouth." His mother said, "You must step because it opens." Lightning lit the flood like molten glass. I knew I saw. In that flash, predator, prey, and water became one frame. Time itself seemed a fracture, each piece sharper than claws. The world had no choice but to continue forward. The rain softened, but the river remained swollen, swollen with secrets and danger. Eli stepped forward, trembling, each hoof sinking into liquid ground. His mother stayed beside him, her breath steady like a drumbeat against chaos. Mara lingered, waiting, patient as stone. Eli said, "I will walk though my legs scream no woo." His mother said, "Walk until the screaming becomes silence." Thorn's voice faded to a low growl across the canopy. Ripples whispered promises both cruel and certain. The river swallowed their reflections whole, leaving only fragments. Survival was not given. It had to be torn from jaws. The storm drifted into silence, leaving the air swollen with steam. Eli pressed his muzzle into the ground, tasting mud and fear. His mother watched the current, but her ears twitched back toward the forest. Mara drifted without ripple, but another shadow thickened beside her. It was Rafi, older, scarred, and broader than her, eyes burning with hunger, not patience. Eli said, "The river holds more than one mouth." His mother said, "Every silence hides another voice." Mara hissed without sound, her jaw clenched against the rival. The river was no longer hers alone. It had shifted sides. The water split as Rafi lifted his ridged head, scars pale against slick scales. Mara pivoted, body arching like a bow ready to snap. Eli trembled, pressed tighter to his mother's flank. Rafi said nothing, but his presence bent the world. Mara said, "This prey is mine." The current answered with a curl, dragging both toward confrontation. Lightning flickered once more, though the storm had passed. The deer froze, caught between rival jaws and the forest's deep silence. The river revealed its hidden truth. Even predators were prey to each other. Balance was more brutal than fairness. The clash erupted with a thrash that shattered calm. Mara lunged sideways, jaws snapping inches from Rafi's scarred throat. Water burst upward, carrying mud into the sky. Eli bolted a step, but his mother held him back with her body. Mara said, "I will not surrender the hunt." Rafi's eyes burned with cold indifference as his tail lashed, cleaving waves. The air turned metallic with the taste of churn. Thunder far away sounded like applause for death. The deer stood helpless, bound by the fight of creatures stronger than storms. The river held its secret war in open sight. The fight dragged into silence again, both predators locked in stillness beneath the surface. Bubbles rose in frantic bursts, then stopped. Eli panted, his wound reopened from panic-driven motion. His mother pressed her muzzle against him, eyes fixed on water. Eli said, "Which shadow rises will decide me." His mother said, "Pray the shadows fight each other, not you." The current eddied in circles, carrying leaves like omens. A turtle surfaced briefly, then dove, abandoning the stage. The forest grew hushed, as though every living thing held its breath. The river's face gave nothing, only waiting. The surface broke at last, but not where they expected. Mara rose, scarred jaw clamped, dragging Rafi sideways into current. He writhed once, then vanished, swallowed by depth. Mara lingered, blood trailing from her snout, eyes bright with fury. Eli gasped, pressing into his mother, unable to move. "Mara," said the river, "gives nothing freely." The mother said, "Then it gives us time." Clouds thinned, a weak sun spilling pale light over the bend. For a breath, silence returned, but it no longer carried peace. The hidden truth had risen. Survival demanded enemies be buried too. The river narrowed into a funnel of violence, swollen by storm and sharpened by hunger. Eli stumbled at the edge, ribs heaving as if they might split. His mother urged him forward, though her own legs shook beneath the weight of fatigue. Mara cut through the channel like an arrow loosed, her tail striking waves into blades. Eli said, "I cannot run against the flood." His mother said, "You must run because it follows." Lightning split the canopy again, its echo rolling through marrow. The climax began not with choice, but with inevitability. Nature demanded its price. The flood swallowed the bank and left only water as the path forward. Eli splashed into the current, hooves slipping in liquid soil. His mother leapt beside him, pressing her body against his to keep him upright. Mara lunged with jaws wide, the strike tearing the surface apart. Eli said, "It opens its mouth for me." His mother said, "Then I will be your wall." Their bodies clashed with the water, as lightning carved their outlines into flame. Time fractured into frames of survival, each sharper than knives. The climax tore away hesitation, leaving only fight. The water roared and smothered sound, yet the struggle spoke louder. Mara's jaws snapped shut, grazing the mother's flank, pulling strands of fur. Eli's cry drowned into the thunder. His mother twisted, hooves striking water in panic, forcing space between predator and calf. Mara rolled sideways, tail carving spirals of rage. Eli said, "She has touched us, and I am finished." His mother said, "Touched is not taken, and finished is not now." The river turned into a theater of fury, every ripple edged with death. The climax climbed higher, demanding sacrifice with each breath. The clash paused in a single, breathless instant, predator and prey suspended between life and death. Mara floated, eyes unblinking, measuring her next strike. The mother braced her stance, flank bleeding but body still shielding. Eli pressed into her, ribs rattling against her warmth. Mara said, "You will falter, and then I will have you." The mother said, "Then falter, after I am gone." The storm's last thunder cracked far away, leaving silence heavy. The river's surface trembled with a truth sharp as glass. Survival was not balance, but death. Someone would pay. The climax shattered in a final violent surge. Mara lunged again, jaws breaking the silence, but the mother hurled herself forward. Teeth met bone and water screamed with them both. Eli stumbled free, pushed into shallows by her sacrifice. Mara dragged her under, tail thrashing, red blooming through the foam. Eli said, "She gave me the river instead of herself." The forest answered with silence so deep it bled into the skin. The climax ended not in victory, but in loss carved eternal. The river closed its mouth and swallowed its secret whole. The storm had finally exhausted its rage, retreating into silence, leaving behind a river swollen and restless, yet disturbingly calm. Mist clung to the water's surface, curling like smoke above hidden currents. Eli staggered into the shallows, his breath ragged, his flanks streaked with mud and grief. His ears drooped, his ribs shuddered, and his eyes carried the hollow weight of loss. The forest offered no comfort, only the steady rhythm of water dripping from the canopy, each drop a mournful metronome. The current tugged at his hooves, trying to drag him back toward the place where blood still swirled unseen. Eli said, "She is gone into the mouth of the water." The forest answered only with silence, its witness heavy and merciless. His small body trembled with exhaustion, yet deep inside a fragile spark still flickered. It was not triumph, but it was survival, and survival carried its own price. The resolution began here, carved not in victory, but in scars deep enough to never fade. Eli climbed slowly onto firmer ground, every step sinking into sodden soil. The reeds bent under his weight, bowing as though mourning with him. The river's pull remained, relentless even in stillness, but for a fleeting moment, its hunger seemed sated. He paused, sides heaving, and lowered his head until his muzzle brushed the mud. Eli said, "Her breath was the last wall between me and silence." The forest offered no answer, only the drip of rain from leaves high above, each drop echoing in the hollow she had left. He pressed his head harder against the earth, searching for the warmth of her presence, finding only cold mud and emptiness. His body quivered, but it was not only exhaustion. Grief seeped through him, filling the spaces hunger and fear had not yet taken. Around him shadows thickened, the world narrowing until only his trembling form remained. The resolution deepened, not with relief but with cruel recognition. Survival was no gift, only poetry written with suffering. The current shifted restlessly, carrying broken reeds and fragments of leaves downstream, each piece a quiet reminder of the violence that had just unfolded. Eli lifted his head slowly, water dripping from his muzzle in trembling lines. His gaze fixed on the river, unwilling yet unable to look away. In the center of the swollen channel, Mara floated with unflinching calm. Only her eyes and ridged brow broke the surface, her massive body hidden, her presence undeniable. Eli said, "You carry her now, and still you wait for me." Mara's gaze did not blink, did not soften, only burned with the same hunger that had claimed his mother. The forest grew darker, dusk wrapping the bend in layers of shadow. Wind sighed through branches, carrying with it the weight of inevitability. Eli braced against the gusts, refusing to collapse, though his legs wavered. This was survival stripped bare, ugly, raw, absolute. Predator and prey both endured, not because of mercy, but because endurance itself was the only law the river honored. Dusk thickened, bleeding into near night. The forest transformed into silhouettes, shadows stretching into jagged walls. Eli stumbled along the riverbank, his ribs stark beneath thin, soaked fur, his hooves leaving deep imprints in the mud. He dragged himself forward, though his strength dwindled with each step. Mara drifted parallel in the channel, her dark outline gliding smoothly with the current, her eyes catching the last light, twin glints of quiet menace. Eli said, "If I stop, I am yours." The forest whispered only with the hollow moan of wind through empty branches. He pressed onward, each step carving defiance into the mud, each breath a declaration that he would not yield. The river glowed faintly with the last amber trace of sun, painting predator and prey together in one frame, eternal opposites locked in fragile balance. The resolution settled over the scene like ash after fire, heavy, bitter, unyielding. Both survived, but both carried loss like a scar carved into the night. Night descended without warning, swallowing detail and softening edges, until only sound remained. Crickets began their steady chorus, stitching the silence left by storm and blood. Eli sank into the mud, his frail body folding, his chest rising and falling in sharp bursts, but still alive. The forest enclosed him in a cloak of shadows, its darkness heavy but protective. Yet the river whispered on, low and ceaseless, its hunger unending. Mara's eyes vanished into the black water, but her presence lingered like a ghost beneath the surface, eternal, patient. Eli said, "She gave me this breath, and I will not waste it." Above him, the clouds parted just enough to reveal trembling stars, their faint silver light piercing the night. The resolution concluded not in triumph, but in quiet inevitability. Survival granted, but never free. Survival demanded, and always survival owed. The debt hung heavy in the air, unpaid and unforgettable. A promise the river would one day collect again. The night pressed down like a heavy curtain, yet, slowly, the forest began to breathe again. Crickets stitched sound into the silence, frogs hummed from hidden pools, and the faint rustle of branches spoke of life returning after storm and loss. Eli rose unsteadily, his legs quivering, his chest heaving as if every breath might be his last. Mud streaked his coat, and water clung to him in silver drops. His mother's absence was a hole carved deeper than the wound on his side. He said, "The river swallowed her, but it did not swallow me." The stars glittered faintly overhead, mirrored in black water that now seemed endless, eternal, waiting. Each step he took pressed into the soaked soil, marking his survival as both defiance and tribute. The echo of her sacrifice clung to the night air, making it heavier, sharper, impossible to ignore. Nothing would ever feel soft again, not after such violence. Still, his fragile frame moved forward, trembling but unbroken, a shadow carrying memory into the silence. Eli pressed his hooves deep into the wet earth, grounding himself as though anchoring against the invisible pull of despair. Around him the forest whispered, every leaf dripping, every shadow alive, every sound sharper now that silence had been broken by death. The river gurgled low, whispering as if it still remembered the body it had swallowed. Mara's shape was gone, yet her absence carried more menace than her presence. He said, "Her strength is mine, because she gave it to me." Wind stirred through the reeds, brushing them together like a farewell song. Fireflies rose from the wet ground, tiny sparks igniting against the darkness, fragile but insistent, their glow defying the weight of grief. Eli lowered his head, trembling but unwilling to fall. The night bowed with him, not in pity but in recognition. This was survival, Not victory, not peace, only a small fire burning where the storm had struck. The echo of her sacrifice wrapped him like a cloak, fragile, borrowed, but fierce. The moon tore free of clouds and poured silver across the river. Its light rippled, bending on waves, fragmenting Eli's reflection into broken pieces. He stepped forward, hooves splashing, water clinging like glass. He said, "The river cannot erase me while I still breathe." No answer came but the steady weight of night pressing against his ribs. The air smelled of wet bark, of decay, of memory too heavy to shake free. Owls shifted above, wings lifting silently, breaking branches with the whisper of flight. Each sound was sharper, each shadow heavier, each breath harder won. Eli moved forward again, steady despite weakness, because to stop was to surrender. The river glowed faintly, an endless mirror filled with hunger and history. His image bent, but it did not vanish, and that was enough. The echo of survival carried into the canopy, folding into the silence until it became part of the forest itself. He was marked, scarred, enduring, unbroken. The forest stirred as if in slow recognition of what had passed. A heron rose from the reeds, wings spreading in silence, long neck outstretched against the moon. Eli stood still, head lifting, eyes following its flight. He said, "Not all that leaves is lost." The river lay smooth, its surface deceptively calm, though he knew the hunger beneath never rested. His muscles ached, his chest heaved, yet his stance was firm. The air tasted like ash and rain, heavy with endings. The stars wheeled above in patient indifference, too far to care yet still reflecting their faint light onto his frame. The heron vanished into the night sky, but its shadow remained etched in Eli's gaze. The forest no longer mourned, it simply continued, alive because it must be. And Eli, trembling, frail, yet upright, understood the truth that every creature must learn: survival does not heal, it brands. His scars would be carried forward as living echoes of this night. Night deepened until stars seemed countless, piercing the sky with faint cold fire. Eli lowered himself slowly into the mud, body weak but breathing steady. His chest rose and fell like waves that refused to end. He said, "Her echo is mine now, and I will keep it alive." The river whispered hunger still, though its jaws were hidden, though its face was flat. It no longer terrified him, yet it never forgave. The forest surrounded him, shadows thick, air heavy, silence broken only by crickets. His eyes closed, carrying memory as if it were flame. The echo lingered, sharp and unforgettable, not peace but permanence. He was not safe, but he was still here. That was the last strike of truth. Survival demanded more than strength. It demanded loss, memory, and endurance. The river had taken, but it had also left him to remember. And that memory would remain, etched forever into silence.